Welcome back to the cryptoworld channel, everyone. My name is Josh, and right now, while Bitcoin and Ethereum are continuing this break to the downside, the larger bullish trend on the larger timeframes is getting extremely close to invalidating, which I'll talk about in just a moment, so definitely stick around. First of all, starting off on the 4-day Bitcoin chart, and right now, the price of Bitcoin is technically still within the larger bullish trend that I've been talking about since the beginning of this year, because technically speaking, at least as of right now, we're still seeing significant higher lows and higher highs here on the much larger timeframes like the 4-day chart and the weekly chart, for example. And on top of that, this super trend indicator right here is still currently sitting in the green on the 4-day Bitcoin chart, once again indicating a larger bullish trend at play, once again, as I've been saying since the beginning of this year. But as I've also mentioned during these previous corrections during this larger bullish trend throughout this year, we do of course have an invalidation price for this larger bullish trend based on the super trend indicator, which does actually move to the upside as the bullish trend continues. And so of course, eventually it is inevitable that trends come to an end. We see trend reversals all the time, and the point at which this larger bullish trend would technically reverse into more of a bearish trend based on the super trend indicator at least would be a confirmed break back below around $25,000 with at least a 4-day candle close, but ideally weekly candle closes back below 25k, because essentially if that happens, that would firmly cement lower lows in place here on the larger timeframes. And on top of that, if that happens, that would also confirm a trend reversal in the super trend indicator, basically flipping this indicator from green back to red, which historically speaking has been bearish on the larger timeframes. And now, once again, at the time of recording this video, that has not yet happened because we have not yet seen a weekly candle close or even a 4-day candle close back below 25k, at least not yet. But it's just important to be aware that that is the invalidation price since we are very close to that price. So once again, if we see that confirmation of that break to the downsides, then it's likely we could enter into more of a bearish trend on the larger timeframes, which, by the way, when I'm talking about the larger timeframes, I'm usually talking about multiple months. But obviously, if you've been watching my videos over the last 1 month or so, I have been more bearish in the short term, if you're talking about the short-term trend, due to things like these bearish divergences currently playing out on the 4-day chart and also here on the daily time frame. Once again, I've been mentioning this bearish divergence on the daily time frame since all the way back up here at around $30,000, telling you that we're likely going to see either some sideways price action, if not some bearish price action in the short term. And as of right now, this bearish divergence is technically still active, which means at least for now in the short-term trend, we are still currently looking more bearish than bullish. And now, with that being said, of course, just recently the price of Bitcoin has run into this important area of support sitting in between around 24.3k to 25.3k. So at least for now, at the time of recording this video, the price of Bitcoin is currently holding slightly above that important area of support, obviously after that massive bearish move over the last few days. And if you're looking at the daily Bitcoin price oscillators, first of all, the daily Bitcoin MACD is once again looking more bearish than bullish. It is indeed showing some bearish momentum. And once again, if you're looking at the daily Bitcoin RSI, this is still trending to the downside, which means technically this bearish divergence is still currently active, so we should not necessarily expect a lot of bullish momentum again in the immediate short term until we actually invalidate this bearish divergence. But with that being said, as I mentioned in my last video on the channel, right now the daily Bitcoin RSI is extremely oversold. In fact, if you zoom out on this daily time frame, we can see that right now the daily Bitcoin RSI is the most oversold that we have seen in well over a year. In fact, the daily Bitcoin RSI wasn't even this oversold back during the bottom of the FTX collapse at the end of the 2022 bear market. So essentially what this means when the daily Bitcoin RSI enters into oversold territories, it typically means the price has gone too far to the downside too quickly and we need some time to reset the RSI back to the upside over the coming days or weeks. And typically the type of price action that we see to help reset the daily Bitcoin RSI back to the upside usually plays out in the form of either choppy sideways price action, if not a slight slight bullish relief as simply the most common outcomes from when the RSI is oversold on the daily time frame. And now obviously there can be other outcomes that may not be as likely, like for example a massive V-shaped recovery like what we saw back here during March. And once again, scenarios like that are of course possible, but they're not exactly probable. They are not very likely. And you can check that for yourself throughout Bitcoin's entire price history. Once again, we usually end up seeing either some choppy sideways price action, if not a slight bullish relief as the most common outcomes from oversold territories. And as for short-term support and resistance, taking a look at this 8-hour Bitcoin chart, right now the price of Bitcoin is actually breaking below the 78.6% Fibonacci level of support, which was sitting at around 26.1k. And so technically speaking, that could now act as a bit of short-term resistance, but above that, we should also expect some resistance at around 27,000 to 27.2k based on this previous golden pocket area of support, which once again should now act as new resistance. And as for short-term support, once again, we do have that important area of support on the daily chart in between around 24.3k to 25.3k. And on top of that, if you're looking at the Bitcoin order books across multiple different exchanges, right now we have quite a lot of buy orders sitting at around 25.4k to 25.5k. And below that area of buy orders just there, we also have a lot of buy orders at around $25,000 per Bitcoin. So basically, those are the short-term price levels where we should also expect some short-term support for the price of Bitcoin. And as for resistance, if you're looking at the sell orders in the Bitcoin order books, we have a lot of sell orders at around 26.4k to 26.5k. So once again, that area right there could also act as some decent resistance in the short term based on the sell orders. And you might also notice a difference between the overall buy orders at around the current price compared to the overall sell orders at around the current price across these multiple different exchanges. Because right now, as I'm recording this video, there are a lot more buyers interested at these prices compared to the amount of sellers interested in selling at around these prices. And so basically what this means is that the price of Bitcoin over the last few days has fallen down to an area where there are a lot of buyers wanting to buy Bitcoin, which basically means the Bitcoin price could somewhat stabilize potentially over the next few days. And unless we see some major whales come out and sell out of nowhere, then it's unlikely we're going to see another massive drop, at least immediately. Of course, anything could happen in a few weeks from now. But as I mentioned in my last video on the channel, the most likely scenario, based on the fact that the RSI is extremely oversold, and also based on the fact that we do have some major support here and a lot of buyers interested at buying these prices, the most likely scenario for Bitcoin, at least for the next few days, is likely going to be a range-bound price action in between around 25k to 27k. But once again, in terms of the short-term trend, this has not changed. Once again, since all the way back up here, I'm still leaning more bearish than bullish in the short term, but I would only start to flip more bearish than bullish on the larger time frames if we see a strong confirmed break below 25k, which as of right now has not yet happened. But anyway, now getting into the Ethereum part of this video, this is on the daily ETH to US dollar chart, and right now the price of ETH is still trading in between 1650 to 1.7k, which is obviously that area of support that I've been mentioning recently on the channel. And as for resistance on the daily time frame, this previous area of support should now act as new resistance, sitting in between around 1770 to 1820. And now if we do end up seeing a confirmed break below 1650, then in that case, the next level of support that I'll be watching is sitting just above 1.5k, more specifically around 1510 to 1520. But in a more bearish scenario, if we actually confirm to break below around 1.5k, then in that case, we also should have some strong support at around 1360 to 1.4k based on this golden pocket. But just taking another look at that daily time frame right here, looking at the daily Ethereum price oscillators, first of all, the daily Ethereum MACD is still currently looking more bearish than bullish. It is indeed showing bearish momentum. And if you're looking at the daily Ethereum RSI, as I mentioned mentioned in my last video, once again, this is currently extremely oversold. In fact, this is the most oversold we have seen the daily Ethereum RSI in well over a year. And now I did go into more detail on this chart right here in my last video on the channel. So if you missed my last video, I suggest you watch that video. But essentially, any time where the daily Ethereum RSI reaches into oversold territories or gets very close to oversold territories, that usually occurs around some sort of local low. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that the bearish price action is completely over and we're going to see no more bearish price action. But what it does mean is that at least in the somewhat shorter term, the price has gone too far to the downside too quickly, and we now need some time to help reset the RSI back to the upsides. And typically, to reset the RSI from oversold territories back to the upside, we usually end up seeing either choppy sideways price action over the coming days or weeks, or potentially a slight bullish recovery over the coming days or weeks. So once again, those are simply the most likely scenarios in the shorter term. Talking about the next few days or so, we're likely going to see a relatively neutral price action, some choppy sideways price action, if not a slight bullish relief. But that does not mean massive bullish momentum, because once again, in the short term, the trend is still currently bearish. And now, if you want to know how to make a lot of money in crypto, no matter if the price is going to the upside, to the downside, or simply chopping around sideways, then make sure to watch these videos popping up right here on your screen. The video in the top left shows you how to make money if the price is bullish or bearish using AI, and the video in the bottom left shows you how you can easily profit from choppy sideways price action. But anyway, that's everything that I have to say for today. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.